Let's talk now to Martina, political correspondent at The Sun, because she's going to tell us about what's on page 10 this morning. Rod Liddle on a Monday, and of course it's all about China. And Rod says China is indeed a threat to the UK, and it is to Keir Starmer as well. Martina, very good morning to you.
Good morning to you, Mike. And yeah, I mean, Rod Liddle's column in The Sun today hits right at what I think is becoming a full-blown China scandal for the Labour government right now. And as you say, Rod's warning is quite simple, that China is a threat, not a partner. And he says the Prime Minister is refusing to face up to that reality, really.
Yeah, he is. And also, the more they doth protest, as they say, the worse it looks, doesn't it? Because we've now been told three different versions of events, like all political scandals. You know, it's the lies that eventually, the cover-up that gets you. You know, the CPS quite clearly have said that they did not get cooperation from Downing Street when they wanted to prosecute these two spies. They wanted to have information which said that China was a threat, that China was indeed the enemy, and that this was dangerous activity that they were getting people to do on their behalf. And meanwhile, you've got Bridget Phillipson yesterday saying Jonathan Powell definitely didn't get involved in what she described as the detail of the case, which all sounded like a little bit of a lawyer's excuse for what he actually did.
Yeah, it's quite crazy the way that the point is changing by the day, you know, and I think for the past 2 weeks they've been able to avoid quite a lot of scrutiny because Parliament wasn't sitting, whereas today we are back in Parliament. There would be a lobby briefing with the Prime Minister's spokesman, so there would be lots of questions. You know, as you say, the CPS has now confirmed they spent months asking the government to confirm that China was a national security threat.
Yeah.
And the government simply refused. So, of course, it was that refusal that collapsed the entire trial. And I think one of the points that Rod Liddle makes in his column today is I think he gets to the point of it, which is, you know, imagine if this had happened the other way around. If a British spy got caught in China, you know, he says he would be executed. But here, you know, our government dropped the case and blamed it on, you know, legal technicalities when, frankly, does not stand up to scrutiny.
No,
and what's quite interesting, I was speaking to a former diplomat who's worked on China for the last 2 decades, and he was going to testify for the prosecution during the trial, and I spoke to him last week, and it was quite interesting what he told me, because he said that if the government had decided to go against what, the government is saying that he couldn't say that China was a threat because under the previous government, it wasn't a threat, so they couldn't change it. But actually, let's imagine they'd done so, and the reason why they didn't is because they were scared of repercussions from China. You know, Charles Parson, his former diplomat, told me, actually, it would have made lots of noise, but essentially it would have amounted to nothing, because China, like most authoritarian states, they can sniff weakness and then they go for it. And actually, all the nations that have been in the doghouse with China, their exports have gone up. During the golden era, Britain's exports to China were at the highest, whereas now they're not. So it's very interesting questions that the government needs to answer today.
Well, also we're told by a piece of the Telegraph this morning that senior economists and politicians have sounded an alarm because there's hundreds of billions of pounds in UK debt, which is basically owned by China. And so the more debt that they own of ours, the more they can control what it is the government does.
Yeah, it's shocking. And there was also this other revelation at the weekend that I thought was, again, very shocking. And it was Xingye, the Chinese owners of British Steel, that apparently, according to the Sunday Times, they offered to waive the 1 billion compensation claim if the government gave the go-ahead for the Chinese embassy, the one in central London that the community secretary, now Steve Reed, is meant to approve in the next few months. And, we're very much in the territory of the sort of quid pro quos, Chinese investment and influence seemingly traded for political goodwill. It's just shocking. And as I say, in the next few days, the pressure will be on the government. They've got to answer lots of questions. Will they be able to do that? Or will they, or the scandal will keep going and more reports will keep on coming? Because actually, we've seen that there are a few cabinet ministers that I don't think are particularly happy about this. There were reports, anonymous reports, of cabinet ministers blaming the Prime Minister, National Security Advisor Jonathan Powell. So I think this bad sentiment is just going to keep coming.
Well, exactly right. And we're told there might be an emergency question. Parliament's back today for the first time since all the conferences took place. And there could be an emergency question tabled about this very point.
Yeah, I think there will be. There will definitely be an urgent question. We know that the Commons Speaker as well, who will be the one who will grant the urgent question, was not particularly happy about what happened. And when it was first reported that the case had collapsed, he said that the government needed to answer lots of questions. And at the time, we didn't even know that the CBS had asked for that material. You know, this was like a month or so ago. And the Commons Speaker was not happy. So we'll definitely see some action in Parliament, and we'll see how the government does.
And Keir Starmer, of course, not there today because he's gone to Egypt to take part in peace talks. A lot of people wonder why he's done that. He likes to go abroad when there's trouble at home, so I guess he might stay there for as long as he can.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, we heard it from Isabel but just a bit earlier when we were talking about Bridget Phillipson yesterday and how she tried to take the credit for what's happening over there. We'll see if the Prime Minister will try to do the same, but I'm not sure it'll go down very well with our ally in the US.
No, I wonder about that. We'll see how that all plays out. We'll watch the body language carefully. Martina, thank you very much indeed. Great column by Rod Liddle in the paper today in the Sun, page 10. You can get your hands on it, of course, online and buy it if you like. We've got also the first tweet of the day from Keir Starmer. He sent it from Egypt, where he says, "Today is the first crucial phase in ending the war in the Middle East. Now we must deliver lasting peace and a secure future for the whole region. The UK is providing additional humanitarian aid for civilians in Gaza, and we will lead efforts to accelerate its reconstruction." Oh, really? Well, I wonder if Donald Trump knows any of that. Because Donald Trump thinks he's in charge of reconstructing Gaza. He also thinks he's in charge of delivering lasting peace and a secure future for the entire region. So if I was Keir Starmer, I wouldn't want to start getting into a contest. There's another word that I could use, but a contest, shall we say, with Donald Trump, the President of the United States of America, because he'll get swatted like a fly. Sean from Bridlington says, "I hope Starmer and all other members of his vile government are banned for life from entering Israel." And one from Paul in Belfast, "I turned on to watch the BBC coverage of the situation concerning the hostages and had to turn it off after a few minutes. The BBC is a national disgrace. It was as if Hamas did not start the war, instead blaming Israel for prolonging the war instead of trying to bring the hostages home. The blatant anti-Semitism on show by the BBC is staggering, as is their willful rewriting of history." Well, an awful lot of people would say that that's the problem with the BBC. They don't actually know what the truth is, and when they do find out, they'd rather kind of conceal it when it comes to what's going on in the Middle East. Gaza in Yorkshire says Starmer should never be allowed to be involved in any deal that involves peace. Starmer and his cronies are a clear danger to the UK and global peace. Well, goodness me.